Welcome to Fix It Home Improvement, covering projects that every homeowner should know and great products for home and garden.
Hi, I'm JC, and this is where we share weekly home improvement tips. I'm here with my co-host, Cindy.
Hello, JC.
Hi, Cindy. This week we're going to be talking about flexible gas appliance connectors, and we'd like to thank Paul Pinos for liking and sharing the podcast. Around 1000 BC in Greece, a goat herdsman came across a flame coming out of the ground where natural gas was escaping.
You don't hear goats herdsmen too much, do you?
No. The ancient Greeks believed that flame was of divine origin, and they built a temple over the flame.
So what was the flame?
It was probably lit by lightning, and then it just was continually burning. They built the Temple of Apollo there, and this is where the Oracle of the Delphi lived and gave her prophecies. Around 500 BC, the ancient Chinese used bamboo pipe to transport natural gas to locations where they would light this gas, they would boil seawater, and then capture the steam to make drinkable water. French explorers found Native Americans burning natural gas in 1626. The first natural gas well in the U.S. was built in 1821. In 1836, the city of Philadelphia created the first community-owned natural gas distribution company. If you're replacing a gas appliance like a range or a clothes dryer, CSA Laboratories requires that the gas connector and the fittings are also replaced. And CSA Laboratories develops safety standards. They've been around since 1919. They're saying connectors are only designed for use on the original connection, and they're not to be reused for another appliance or a new location. Watts, it's W-A-T-T-S. They're a manufacturer of gas connectors. They say stainless steel gas connectors are designed to last the life of the appliance, and they should be replaced when the appliance is replaced or if you move it to another location. And when you move your appliance to inspect it or to clean behind it, you should use caution to prevent crushing, pinching, or stretching the connector.
Interesting.
If you're replacing a gas appliance that's 20 years old or older, you should use caution when you're moving it. The Consumer Product Safety Commission says some old brass connectors have a flaw on how the tubing was connected to the end pieces. And over time, the ends can separate from the tubing, which can cause a gas leak, a fire, or even an explosion. They're saying any old uncoated brass connector should be replaced with a new plastic-coated brass connector or a new stainless steel connector. They say just moving an old appliance with these brass connectors can cause it to fail. And if you do move an old appliance and smell gas, they recommend leaving your home immediately. Well, leave your home immediately, call the gas company or 911, and don't light anything. Don't turn on or off a light switch. Don't touch anything electrical because it could cause a fire or an explosion. If you have your main gas valve outside, you can turn off the gas to your house from the outside if you smell a leak. I read an article from Nicor Gas. They say if your appliance is more than 20 years old, there's a good chance it may have an uncoated brass connector. They're saying the only safe way to tell is to have a qualified contractor check it. They don't recommend homeowners checking it themselves because of a potential fire or an explosion. They're saying you need to replace these old brass connectors with either a plastic-coated brass connector, an uncoated stainless steel connector, or a plastic-coated stainless steel connector. And these coatings help protect the connector from chemicals and UV rays.
You know what's kind of crazy? It's like 20 years ago was 2000.
Doesn't seem that long ago. And if you have an older home, you should update...
What are we saying an older home is?
Well, for some of these products, 20, or if it's 20 years old or older...
So your house was built in 2000.
Right.
Just think about that. Ugh, we're getting old.
Well, what's crazy is...
I don't like it.
If you've done any home repairs or your previous owner did some home repairs and they bought products from a local hardware store, they can have old stock sitting in these hardware stores that that they haven't turned. So,
for 20 years.
So homeowners might be buying stock that isn't current or should be updated. You should take a look online for a grease pack gas valve and see what it looks like. So grease pack is just grease, G-R-E-A-S-E, pack, P-A-C-K. And these old type valves were notorious for leaking after they get a little older. They dry out. They're going to have a cap on the bottom that's supposed to be refilled with grease. And you can also have a valve that looks like one of these without the cap, and they're going to have a thin metal handle on the top or a square tab that you turn to turn the valve on and off. But these newer quarter-turn ball gas valves are much safer, and they're going to turn much easier.
What kind of appliances need a gas connector?
So the main appliances would be a gas range or a gas clothes dryer. In some areas,
a gas range, you're talking about a stove and oven?
Right, yeah.
Why do they call it a range?
Or I don't know. You've got an oven, you've got a cooktop, and then when you have an oven and a cooktop together, they call it a range.
That's still stupid.
But all of those could use a flexible gas connector. In some areas, you can use a gas connector for a furnace or a water heater, but in most towns, they want you to use solid black gas pipe to a furnace or a water heater.
Are there special fittings that you need for a gas connector?
When you're purchasing a gas connector, it's going to come with 2 flare fittings. You're going to have one side with a rounded end that's seating directly against the flared end of that metal connector. The other side of the fitting is going to have a male or a female end with iron pipe-sized thread. To replace a gas connector, you want to move the appliance out of the way and turn off the gas valve. The International Fuel Gas Code says you should have a shutoff valve within 6 feet of an appliance. You're going to remove the old gas connector and the flare fittings from the valve and the appliance. You don't want to reuse those old fittings.
Right.
And then measure the depth of your appliance and add enough length so you can pull it out of the way for maintenance, be able to get behind it. If you have a 2-foot deep gas range, for example, I would add 2 feet so that you can pull it out and get behind it. You don't want to go too long because when you push that back, it's too easy to kink it and cause a leak.
Because it is a hose.
Check your local code. ANSI, A-N-S-I, they're the American National Standards Institute, allows up to 72 inches for a gas connector, but some areas like Massachusetts will limit the length to 36 inches. And you want to use the shortest length that lets you comfortably work behind your appliance.
Right.
Next thing you want to find
is... Do you ever make up different names, like for...
abbreviations?
Yes.
Yeah, I should start doing that and just see if I get any emails. Another key thing you want to do is find the maximum input rating of your appliance. This is the maximum amount of gas flow at full capacity. For a gas range, it would be the amount of all the burners and the oven on high.
Right.
And this is going to be on a tag attached to the appliance or in the manual because you don't want your connector reducing or restricting the flow of gas while you're trying to use all of your burners in the oven. The gas connector BTU rating should be equal or greater than the BTU rating of the appliance. You want to use a connector as close to the rating as possible, above it, not below it.
Right. So the BTUs will be listed on the packaging?
Yes, most of the packaging is color-coded, and they'll have the length on front, 60 inches, for example, and then on back you're going to have a chart. You're going to match the color and the length on this chart, and it's going to tell you how many BTUs it's rated for. And it'll range, from 20,000 BTUs to well over 100,000 BTUs.
Okay.
Look at the fittings on the package that come with your connector because you're going to have to connect those to your gas valve and the appliance. And you need to know the size.
Are there different sizes?
You're going to have different size fittings, and you're also going to have different size gas valves. You could have a female thread or a male thread if they added a short pipe to it. And then depending on the appliance, it can be different sizes. 1/2-inch and 3/4-inch gas valves are very common with a female thread, but there could be a short piece of pipe connected to that. 1/2-inch female is common for the gas range, and 3/8 male is popular for a clothes dryer. Take the old flare fittings with you to the hardware store if you're unsure.
You don't need to bring the gas connector, though.
Right, because all you care about is what's connecting to the valve and what's connecting to the appliance, because they might have purchased the wrong size, so you may not want the inside diameter or the flare side of that old connector. So all we're really concerned about is what's going to fit into the gas valve and what's going to connect to the appliance. Or you can take a picture of the valve and the appliance. You might need to add a short length of pipe or an elbow, and you're going to use black pipe for gas, not galvanized. That's for water. Or they might be able to exchange the fitting that comes in the package for you with a different flare fitting. And most local hardware stores would do that for you.
Okay.
Many of the connectors will come with a 1/2-inch male fitting on one side for a gas valve, and on the other side it'll be 1/2-inch male with 3/8 female inside thread for the other side, because 1/2-inch male is common for ranges and 3/8 female is common for dryers.
Plumbing is weird.
Yeah. FIPS is female iron pipe size if you're looking at the packaging and they're describing what's in it.
Right.
So if you see FIPS, that's female iron pipe size. MIPS is male iron pipe size. Or you might see NPT, which is just national pipe thread, or IPS is iron pipe size. So those are all interchangeable, the IPS or NPT, but then you need to know whether it's female or male.
Right.
When you connect your fittings to the gas valve and your appliance, you're going to use either PTFE plumber's tape, you want to use the yellow plumber's tape, or pipe thread compound on the male thread and tighten down your fittings. On the side, the flare side that connects to your connector, you don't want to use any type of sealant. No tape, no pipe thread compound. You want the metal to connect to metal, and you don't want anything interfering with that.
Seems easy enough.
And you're going to use 2 wrenches, one to hold the fitting and then one to tighten down the nut on the connector. Once your connector is tightened down, you're going to turn on the gas and you're going to test all the connections with a liquid gas leak detector. I spoke to Oatey, it's OATEY. They have an all-purpose leak detector, and they have the Hercules Mega Bubble leak detector. And their Mega Bubble is designed to cling to pipes that have an oily residue, where a soap and water mixture can move off an oily pipe too quickly, and soap bubbles aren't long-lasting, so you may not detect a leak. And soapy water isn't recommended because depending on the solution that you create or the type of soap you use, it may not show you a small leak. And some soaps have chlorides that can actually damage your gas connector.
Really?
Yeah, interesting. And Oatey has been around since 1916.
So they probably know what they're doing.
Yes. Some gas connectors have an excess flow and thermal shutoff safety fitting in the package.
What does that mean?
So this will reduce the gas flow if your connector gets damaged or if it starts a fire and has excess heat. If you're looking at connectors from Watts and you see Smart Sense on the package, that's going to be one of these safety fittings. If you're looking at Brasscraft connectors, they're Safety Plus 2, if you see that on the package, that's their safety fitting. And you need to connect the safety fitting to the gas valve, not the appliance.
Okay.
And there's going to be an arrow marked on the fitting so you know which way the gas should be flowing.
Okay. Do you have anything else to add?
If you have an old appliance and you don't know what type of connector you have, be careful when you're moving it out because you can damage some of these old brass connectors, and replace any old brass connectors and old gas valves for safety. Replace the connectors and the fittings every time you replace an appliance. Working with gas can be dangerous, so if you're uncomfortable or unsure, just hire a professional and make sure you read all the warnings on the instructions.
Okay, let's wrap this up.
You can subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, CastBox, or your favorite podcast app.
If you enjoyed it, please leave us a review.
You can check out our home improvement videos on our YouTube channel, Fix It Home Improvement.
And you can subscribe to that as well.
You can download our ebooks, Home Improvement Solutions, What Every Homeowner Should Know, on Amazon, books 1 through 12, soon book 13.
If you enjoyed it, please give us a 5-star rating and review.
You can follow Cindy on Twitter, @FixItCohost. You can follow us on Instagram, Fix It Home Improvement. And you can email us at fixitpodcast@gmail.com.
Thank you for listening.
Talk to you next week.